Hey friends, welcome back to the NeuroSpicy Mom Pod, the cozy, soft, sensory-safe corner of the internet where we talk about healing, parenting, being neurodivergent, and trying our absolute best in a world that was not built for our nervous systems. Before we jump in, I just want to take a moment to say thank you, truly. If you've been here from the beginning, you are literally changing my life. Your shares, your comments, your reviews, your messages, you're helping this little podcast grow in a way that I never expected. And whether you know it or not, you're helping create a gentler world for all of us. A world where nervous systems aren't misunderstood or punished or dismissed. And if you're new here, welcome in. I'm so glad you found your way to this little soft corner. This podcast exists for the kids we once were, for the parents we are now, and for the adults who are still trying to understand themselves while healing at the same time. My mission here is simple. Normalize the neurodivergent experience, offer nervous system safe tools, remove shame from the conversation, and help us all feel a little less alone as we grow and learn to glow. So whether this is your first episode or your 20th, thank you for being here, truly. No perfection required, no masking required, just you, exactly as you are. Today, I want to talk about something I've carried a lot of shame around, and I know I'm not the only one. We talk all the time about co-regulation, being the calm for our kids, being the anchor, being the nervous system that they can borrow when theirs is overwhelmed or overloaded or spiraling. And everything about that is true. Kids do need us to be their steady place, their safety, their calm. But here's the thing that feels wrong to talk about. What happens when you're also neurodivergent and you don't actually have any extra calm to give? What happens when your child's meltdown or noise or sensory storm collides with your own dysregulation and it all crashes at the exact same time? Because yes, our kids are dysregulated, but so are we. And that doesn't make us bad parents. It makes us human, neurodivergent humans that are living inside nervous systems that run louder, deeper, more sensitive, and more easily overwhelmed. So let's get into it. You know, I've been thinking a lot about this lately. This expectation that parents should somehow be endlessly calm, endlessly patient, endlessly regulated, even when our own nervous systems are running on fumes. We talk so often about being that calm for our kids, and that's true. That's science, and it's important. It matters so much. But there's this whole other piece of the story that we don't really talk about. And that's the part I've held so much shame around. Because the reality is this: parenting is inherently dysregulating. It does not matter how much you love your children, their needs, their noise, their energy, their emotions, their proximity. It all sits inside your body too. And when you're neurodivergent, that load hits harder and faster and deeper than people realize. When they're babies, the sleep deprivation alone is enough to send your entire system back into survival mode, which I know it did for me. And it doesn't magically resolve when toddlerhood comes, because now you're still sleep deprived, but you're also being touched constantly, pulled on, climbed on, talked to nonstop. Overstimulated from morning to night, trying to meet developmental needs while also suppressing your own needs. And by the time you're even able to register what's going on inside your body, you're already at a 9 out of 10. Then you add the noise, so much noise, constantly being interrupted during every task, and little bodies moving around everywhere, the toys on the floor, and transitions, and all this emotional intensity that comes with tiny little nervous systems trying to figure out the world. And most days, everything is happening all at once. And then there is the decision fatigue. The endless cycle of meal planning, adjusting meals, negotiating meals, hoping they'll eat the meals, wondering if the meals are too crunchy or too soft or too beige or too colorful or somehow just wrong for reasons they don't even have language for yet. All while you're standing there realizing you haven't eaten yet. You haven't had any water today. And then, just as your system is stretched thin and humming with overload, your child melts down. And even though you know it's developmentally normal, even though you understand it intellectually, your body reacts like it's one more wave crashing into the shore that's already eroding. You feel your chest tighten, your thoughts get sharp, and your senses get louder, and the calm you're supposed to offer suddenly feels completely out of reach. And this is the part that used to make me feel like a fraud. If I'm telling parents to be the calm, how am I supposed to admit that sometimes I can't find mine? That sometimes my child's dysregulation hits my own at the exact wrong moment, and the sound or the crying or the chaos of the moment sends me right to the edge of my capacity and I lose it. Not because I'm bad, not because I don't care, but because my nervous system literally cannot manage one more thing. And afterwards, I would spiral, replay the moment, criticize myself, apologize for my behavior, and promise to try to find the calm next time, and then carry the shame for days, like this heavy stone in my stomach. Because growing up, no one ever explained what was actually happening inside my body. So I thought it was a moral failure, but it wasn't. It was my body speaking a language I had never been taught how to hear, which is why I want to go into the science now, because understanding the why can help explain everything. Once I started learning the science behind why this happens, it genuinely changed the way I saw myself. It softened something in me. It helped me understand that this wasn't about willpower or strength or being a good mom. This is about the way our nervous systems work, the way they've always worked, even long before we had words for it. So let's talk about what's actually happening inside our bodies in these moments where we're supposed to be calm, but we're not calm at all. Because there's a physiological side, a neurological side, a psychological side, and a biological side. And all of those pieces come together in a way that makes perfect sense once you understand them. Physiologically, neurodivergent nervous systems are designed to pick up more sensation, more emotion, more sound, more input, more energy in a room. I use the analogy that neurotypical people focus like a flashlight. They can narrow in on one thing and tune out the rest. But neurodivergent brains are more like a floodlight. We see everything lit up at once, and we have to sort through all that information just to figure out what we're supposed to be focusing on. And our systems don't just notice things, they absorb them. And when we're already tired or hungry or overwhelmed, our threshold for all of that input becomes tiny. Not because we're failing, but because our bodies are already using every resource they have just to stay functional. So when our child screams or cries or melts down, our body doesn't experience that as my child needs help. Our body experiences it as this is too much. Our heart rate spikes, our muscles tense, our breathing gets shallow, our brain starts searching for an escape route. All of this happens before we even have a conscious thought. Then there's the neurological piece. Neurodivergent brains process information differently, especially sensory information. For many of us, the dimmer switch that neurotypical people rely on to soften sensory overload just isn't there. Our brains turn everything up instead of down. When our kids escalate, our nervous system doesn't slide into calm. It mirrors the intensity because that's how our neurons fire, quickly, deeply, and passionately. And because our emotional processing tends to run hot, we feel everything at level 10 before we even know what's happening. Our children's distress doesn't just land in front of us, it lands inside of us. That's neurology. Then there's the psychological part. So many of us grew up without co-regulation. No one soothed us. No one taught us what safety felt like or modeled how to come back down from overwhelm in a way that didn't involve shame or punishment or the silent treatment. Most of us were sent to our rooms as children to deal with our big feelings on our own. So our brains learned survival strategies instead of soothing strategies. Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Those were the tools we were handed as children, and our brain goes right back to them when the pressure rises. So when our own child melts down, our psychology and our childhood conditioning collide. We aren't reacting to the moment. We're reacting to every moment in our past where our own distress was misunderstood or ignored. That's the psychology. And now we have the biology. This includes hormones, cortisol levels, executive functioning challenges, chronic exhaustion, and the reality that our body is often running in a constant state of depletion. Neurodivergent parents burn energy faster. We regulate slower. We recover slower. So by the time the meltdown hits, we are already halfway to shut down without realizing it. That's biology. All of these pieces interact in real time, and when they do, our body does the only thing it knows how to do. It protects us. Sometimes that protection looks like crying. Sometimes it looks like yelling. Sometimes it looks like shutdown. Sometimes it looks like needing to step away before our system collapses under the weight of everything coming at us at once. It isn't a lack of love or a lack of effort. It isn't hypocrisy. It is a nervous system doing its absolute best inside circumstances that are already overwhelming. And once I learned that, truly learned it, not just intellectually understood it, I started to see myself differently. I started to soften toward myself, and I started to understand that those moments where I lose my calm doesn't mean I'm failing at parenting. It means my body is asking for support it never got. It means my nervous system is communicating with me in the only language it knows, intensity. And that understanding is what allowed me to start approaching these moments with more compassion, not more shame. Because shame never leads to regulation. Shame leads to shutdown. But understanding lets us breathe again. Understanding lets us repair. Understanding lets us choose something different the next time. Understanding pulls us out of the spiral and puts us back into connection with ourselves. And that brings me into the next part of this conversation. What co-regulation actually means when you're neurodivergent, and how we can support ourselves in the moments where we cannot be the calm, even though we wish we could. And that brings me to the next part of this conversation, what co-regulation actually means, because here's the thing. Co-regulation is not about perfection. It's not about never losing your cool. It's not about magically holding steady no matter what happens. Co-regulation is a relationship. It's a pattern. It's the overall experience of returning to safety, not the absence of rupture. When you're neurodivergent, co-regulation is going to look messy sometimes. It's going to be imperfect. It's going to include moments where your nervous system says, nope, I am done. And you have nothing left to give. And that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means you're living inside a body that has limits, real biological, neurological limits. And you're allowed to honor that. For so long, I believed that being the calm meant I had to stay regulated no matter what, that anything less meant I was failing. But the truth is, your kids don't need you to be perfectly calm all the time. They need to see what a real human nervous system looks like. They need to see that overwhelm happens. They need to see that you can lose your footing and find your way back. They need to see repair. Repair is the gold. Repair is what rewires their nervous system towards resilience instead of fear. When I lose my calm, when I yell or snap or shut down, I used to spiral into shame for days. But now, instead of spiraling, I move into repair. I'll go to my kids when I'm ready and I'll say, hey, my body got overwhelmed and I'm sorry I yelled. You didn't do anything wrong. My nervous system just needed a moment. That simple repair, that honest naming, teaches them more about emotional regulation than any amount of forced calm ever could. It tells them they're safe. It tells them your reactions aren't their responsibility. And it tells them that even grown-ups lose it sometimes and that it's okay to make your way back. And when you're neurodivergent, making your way back often requires actual tools. Not vague advice, not just take deep breaths. Tools that honor your sensory needs and your neurology. Sometimes it means lowering the lights or turning down the sound in the house. Sometimes it means putting cold hands on my cheeks. Sometimes it means humming. Sometimes it means saying out loud, my body feels overwhelmed. I need a minute. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be honest. And I know that it can feel scary, especially if you grew up in a home where your caregivers never apologized or never regulated or modeled anything but chaos. But your kids having a parent who comes back, who repairs, who is willing to own their moments and soften again, that is everything. That is the cycle breaker. That is the healing. So if you're listening to this and thinking about all the times you lost your calm, I want you to breathe. You are not failing. You are not a hypocrite. You are a neurodivergent parent doing something incredibly hard, raising tiny humans with a nervous system that was never supported the way it needed to be. And the fact that you care, the fact that you are listening to this, the fact that you want to understand yourself and your kids better, that is the opposite of failure. That is love in motion. Thank you for being here today, and thank you truly for helping this podcast grow into something that feels like a safe little corner for all of us. Your presence here matters more than you know. If you enjoyed today's episode or found it comforting, it would mean so much if you shared it, left a review, or subscribed. That helps more neurodivergent parents find this space, and it helps me keep creating episodes like this. And if you want to stay a little longer, I'll be closing with our journaling prompt and our Small Business Shoutout. If you're ready to wrap up here, thank you for being here. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next week, friends. If you're sticking around, let's get to our Small Business Shoutout. This week's Small Business Shoutout is going to someone creating absolute magic for our neurodivergent kids, and honestly for all kids who deserve to feel seen, supported, and emotionally safe. I want to highlight the children's book, I've Got You. A beautifully written and illustrated story that helps little ones understand big feelings, self-regulation, and the power of connection. It's one of those rare children's books that speaks directly to the nervous system in a gentle, compassionate, and totally accessible way. If you're a parent, a caregiver, teacher, or anyone raising neurodivergent kids, this is one of those books you'll want on your shelf. The kind you grab during meltdowns, hard days, or those tender moments when your child needs reassurance that they are safe, loved, and not alone. You can find I've Got You on Amazon. I'll put the link in the show notes, and make sure to follow the creator on Instagram at I've Got You Children's Book with underscores underneath for more resources, behind the scenes look, and supportive content for families. Supporting small creators who are making the world better for our indie kiddos is one of my favorite things. So go send this account some love and check out the book. Before we close out today, I want to leave you with our journaling prompt for the week. Something that you can sit with later tonight or tomorrow morning with a cup of tea, or whenever your body feels ready to reflect. Here it is. Think back to a recent moment when you lost your calm. Instead of focusing on what you did wrong, ask yourself, what was happening inside my body at that moment? What was my nervous system trying to tell me? And what do I wish I had received as a child or as an adult that might have helped me stay supported in that moment. Be curious with yourself and be gentle. Let your answers come from compassion, not critique. Sometimes the wisdom we're looking for is already inside us. It just needs a softer place to land. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Truly, these conversations are not easy, but they are so necessary. And the fact that you show up for them week after week tells me more about you than you probably realize. It tells me you care. It tells me you're trying. It tells me that you want something different and gentler for yourself and your kids. And that is everything. I'll see you next week, friends. Take care of your nervous system, take care of your heart, and remember, repair matters more than perfection, and you're doing better than you think. See you next week, lovies. Ta-ta.